Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy Bean Pot Finals Day. Thank you so much for joining us for this very exciting discussion and Q&A today. My name is Fiona, and I am the president of the Student Alliance for Prison Reform, and we are joined today by a very special guest. He is a national speaker, author, reentry consultant, and master certified empowerment coach. He is also the founder of On the Inside Reentry Academy and uses his journey as a formerly incarcerated individual to inspire those facing similar struggles. And we are thrilled to have him joining us today. So please give a warm welcome to Kardell Sims. Mr. Sims, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate you all having me. Thank you for having me on.
All right, awesome. First, can you please tell us a bit about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, as you said, I'm a reentry consultant, a reentry peer support specialist, entrepreneur, author, national speaker. Didn't think I was going to be all those things 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but that's the path that my journey has allowed me to do. I grew up in a impoverished neighborhood. My mother was 16 years old when she had me. I have an older sister that she had 2 weeks prior to her 14th birthday. So I grew up under a young mother who was still actually a teenager who was still trying to figure out life herself and raise some children. By the time I was a teenager, I was involved in gangs. I got involved in gangs, and then I caught my first attempted murder case at 15 years old. Because I could play basketball, I was in sports too at the time. So because I could play basketball, I had coaches come speak on my behalf, explaining the situation with my mother. My mother was on drugs at the time, and just explaining our household. So I got put into one foster home. Well, I went to juvenile detention center for a while. Then I got put into one foster home, and it just didn't work out. Just wasn't fit for me at the time. And so I got put in another foster home. During this period, I was on probation. I had a stipulation that I had to graduate high school. So I ended up graduating high school with a basketball scholarship, and I moved back home and gotten right back into the gangs and stuff like that. So during my college career, I was somewhat living like a double life. I was playing basketball, but I was selling drugs and gang banging and doing all kind of other stuff that the average student athlete shouldn't be doing or is doing. So once my senior year came, my final basketball game was over with. I dropped out of school and I was full fledged in the streets and into gangs. I caught my first drug case. I ended up getting probation because of my education. As soon as I was released out the county jail on probation, I went right back to the same neighborhood, same block, got back to doing the same thing. And I caught another drug and gun case. I went to trial. I lost in trial and I got sentenced to 19 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections. I was 23 years old with a 19-year sentence, and the prison that I walked into, the name of it was called The Walls. Nickname was the bloodiest 48 acres. It was an old prison. When I walked in there, it had a sign on the wall when you go and receive and you get your clothing and all that. It had a sign on the wall that said, "Leave all your hopes and dreams behind." So that's kind of what I did at 23 years old with a 19-year sentence in one of the country's most deadly prison. Luckily, that prison was on the verge of shutting down, and so we got shipped to other prisons and things like that. And in the middle of me doing my prison time, a Senate bill passed to cut one of the mandatory minimums that I lost in trial on in half. So I was up for immediate parole, but I wasn't doing nothing with the time that I was incarcerated, but playing basketball, fighting. I got stabbed, a lot of different things. I was just what we call gelling. I was just gelling. And when I was up for parole, I ain't have nothing to show what I was doing, anything positive. So they was like, "Mr. Sims, you got a few more years with us." And they asked me what did I think about institutional behavior and drug treatment. And I told them I'd take it because my criminal thoughts knew that the sooner I get into the treatment program, the quicker I get released. So if my out date was 5 years away and I got in the treatment program within a year and a half, as soon as I do the treatment program for 6 months, I can get released. So that was kind of like a 3-year play. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take the treatment. And so they sent me to the treatment. I got out, went right back to the same neighborhood, same block, same gang. So I sat on the same drugs, caught another drug case within a year and a half that I got out of prison. My parole got violated because of the new case, and I was fighting that case while in prison. I ended up beating that case on the technicality. I was released from prison after a couple of years, went right back to the same neighborhood, same block. And this time when I got out, it was a gang war. Some people got shot, some people got killed. And because I wasn't the only person from my neighborhood and my block that was out there selling drugs and gang banging, um, I got violated and sent back to prison for association. And so sent back to prison for another couple of years. I get out, same neighborhood, same block, doing the same thing. I know y'all like, man, that's crazy, but yeah, I didn't. That was what I knew. I felt like at the time, this was I should tell myself, this is only life for me. And so I went back and did the same thing. And then within 2 years, the federal government came and picked me and 31 other people up for conspiracy charges, gang activity, it's just a lot of different charges. And I was standing in the federal courtroom, and they handed me the indictment paper. And I really wasn't concerned with the time that it had on there. What caught my attention was at the top of the paper, it said the United States of America versus Kardell Sims. And so I'm 34, 35 at the time. I just spent all my 20s almost in and out of prison. Here it is. I was in my 30s, and I'm like, man, something got to change. Why do you keep finding yourself in this situation? And the only answer I came up with was I put myself in these situations. So from that point on, I kind of made like a silent oath to myself that I'd be better whenever I got released from prison than I was standing there that day. And only thing I had to do that was books. So I just started reading all type of different books. I was used to reading the urban novels, and I just started reading them, and I just started reading knowledge itself, science itself, how to hustle to win. It was books, psychology, and goal setting books. Them most of everything I had, self help books. And I just started reading and taking notes, reading and taking notes. When I was in Leavenworth Penitentiary, they had a class called Consciousness and Success. And in the class, it taught me about vision boards and affirmations. So I applied them two things to my daily regimen, and I started designing what I wanted my life to look like once I got out of prison. I knew I wanted to be a speaker. I knew I wanted to be a coach. I knew I wanted to be a business owner. So I didn't know anything about these particular things, but every day I woke up after I said an affirmation, after I self gratitude for being blessed with another day, I would start learning about them things, how to start a business, different business structure. I would have people send me in the paperwork. I would work on filling the paperwork out. Same thing with speaking, same how to be a life coach, all these different things. So once I was released, I had the vision board, I had the goals, and I just stuck to the goals all the way up to this point. I've been out 6 years. So what I built, how far I came, I built really in 6 years. In the reentry field, I really built in 3 years because when I first started coaching and thing, I was just doing regular life coaching and speaking. And then when COVID hit, one of my mentors challenged me to write a book about my life. And I wrote a book and called it Made the Inspiration, and it did real good. And it put me in my lane as far as coaching and where I really belong and my purpose. And so from that point on, I just been grinding real hard, real heavy in the reentry field. I run programs inside of prisons. Well, I run a physical program inside one of the prisons that I used to be in. I run a program there, and then I run virtual programs across the country, and also do workshops across the country in different institutions and prisons.
Wow. That's, I mean, your journey is really, really powerful, I think. What do you think makes a reentry successful? Is it just not going back, or is there more to it?
It's not. It's more to not just going back. Uh, the first thing is what makes reentry successful is you have reentry starting on the inside. That's why I named my reentry academy on the inside reentry academy, because I know for a fact reentry starts on the inside of prison and of self. You can't wait till somebody gets out of prison to get to talk about, yeah, let me help you help you reenter. That I'm already out here now. It's ball game. It's you know what I'm saying. So starting on the inside is kind of like you practicing and preparing for the actual game. So whether it's a vocational skill someone could pick up, a trade, a technical skill, some personal development courses, mental health courses, especially mental health, because you're looking at the statistics. At least 80 to 85% of those incarcerated are dealing with some adverse childhood experiences that led to trauma, and it might have led to the cycle of behavior that leads them to prison, or it might have led to the drug and alcohol abuse that led them to prison. And so it's just many different things, but the main thing is starting that preparation for their release while they're incarcerated, and not once being released trying to get them ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so can you explain a little bit how empowerment and personal growth are central to that successful reentry experience?
Yeah, I think the empowerment of personal growth, like what we do with the workshops when we come in, everyone on my team is formerly incarcerated. So when we go in to do a full day workshop, an empowerment workshop, for one, they're seeing that it's possible. Like we go in there and show them the possibility of life after incarceration that you don't see on TV or that you don't hear about, that you know, we bring the hope. But we also teach the empowerment and personal development because it starts with self. Like you have to challenge some, it might be some beliefs that you've been told all your life. Like I had a belief I was a product of my environment. And so even having that belief running in and out of prison, like this is the type of environment I belong in. So then personally, you have to dig deep within yourself and find those beliefs that you might have to challenge. Start understanding your values, and then aligning what's important to you, and having self expectations for self is a big one. But a lot of guys that I've been incarcerated with, including myself, our only expectation was to get out and go back to the block. That's all, you know, sitting in the yard and talk about, well, I can't wait till we get back out on the block and all that. And that's the only expectation. So when you start, like, you start prioritizing yourself, start valuing yourself, and start challenging a lot of them beliefs, you begin to start working on self and start building confidence. You know what I'm saying? Utilizing goal setting and things of that nature. But personal development and empowerment are the biggest thing, because if someone don't have the confidence and doesn't have someone showing them the way, or can look and say, "Oh, yeah, he did it," then most likely they get out and return, because it's kind of just like how I was. I was on the inside. I wasn't working on myself, and I didn't have nobody to really look up to and say, "Oh man, he got out of prison and changed his life around."
Yeah, so kind of going off of that, did you have a coach or a mentor to guide you through this process during your time? And why is it so important that someone does have a coach or a mentor?
Oh, this last time I got out of prison, I didn't. At first, I didn't have them for about like a year. So my coach and mentors came off watching YouTube videos, Instagram. Eric, I don't know if any of y'all, Eric Thomas, motivational speakers, Les Brown. Them were secretly my mentor without them knowing, because I used to wake up and watch them every day because I didn't have a one-on-one mentor. Gary V, these type of people that my interest was in. So listening to them and watching what they was doing and information they was giving out through Instagram allowed me to start taking certain steps and then getting in circles to where I was able to find me a mentor. That was probably like a year and a half after I was out. I got my first mentor, and it was great because he showed me that I can build my own reentry program and getting inside the institutions without having to going through the base programs that have been in institution for 30 years that haven't made an impact. Kind of like, you know, what they say, the gatekeepers. So he showed me that I didn't have to go through the gatekeepers, that I can build my own program. I was just gonna have to work hard on getting it in there. And he was formerly incarcerated, successful, number one in the field. And so I learned a lot of things when it came to building the programs. And when I started having meetings with commissioners and wardens and all these different correctional institutions, he guided me through that process. And it was important because I probably could have fumbled the bag without him.
Yeah, we'd love to hear more about, what does your program look like, and are there any specific, success stories or memorable experiences that you have from it?
Yeah, my program. I got many different programs under the academy. I got an entrepreneurship playbook program, which is a 12-week program. I have a communicating the story through writing and speaking, which is a 1 year program. My personal development is a 6 month program. And then I have a mindset shift program, which is a 6 month program. But the biggest thing about my program is anyone who's in my program get my mentorship from that point on out. When they get released, or a lot of people that might finish my program, they might not go home directly. So I'm able to still mentor them through the email system, phone calls, and things like that. Like, to me, that's the biggest thing, because having that mentor is one of the most crucial things when getting released from prison. Having someone that can, you're going to run across some things that they may have navigate, and they can teach you how to navigate. And it's not an authoritative figure like a PO or a case manager and things like that. So you're going to be able to talk about some things and get personal with them that they might not bring to the table when it comes to the PO, with the fear of possibly having some kind of, maybe getting locked up, or consequences, or things of that nature. You just don't want to have a bad relationship with your PO. And so my program, like I said, personal development is my biggest program, because that's where I get my most signups. And we go through everything from beliefs, values, needs, resilience, personality tests, your learning style. We do a lot of assessments, and we really dig in on who you are, understanding who you are, and how it relates to everything when it comes to your reentry, even in the job field. One of the stigmas is, and they want us to, people come out of prison and just take any jobs, and that's what they've been telling us for years. You just need to get out and just get a job. But what happens is, when you take a job that doesn't fit your personality, doesn't fit who you are, you're subject to not be there that long. And once you quit the job, now you're subject to go back to committing crimes or a criminal act, because it's already hard to find a job. And so you got to find it. I always tell people in my class, you got to find a job that fits your personality. Like, when I got out of prison, I knew I couldn't work. I knew I wasn't going to be able to last long if I got out and went and found me a job in a factory. For one, I'm ADHD. I can't be standing on the line all day for no 8 hours. It just ain't going to work. I got to move around, you know. And so that was going to be a failure to me, because if I had to go and do that every day, all day, no matter how hard I want to stay out of jail and stuff like that, it just wasn't going to work. It's just, I would have quit. And so when they handed me a list, when I got to the halfway house, all the jobs was factory jobs. Now remember, I got a vision. I'm trying to be a speaker. I'm trying to do these things. But every job is factory except for one job. And it was the lowest paying job on there, but it was a telemarketing job. It fit me perfect. It helped me learn how to become a better speaker. I had to learn how to read scripts and things like that. Before we went to work, they had meetings. They were doing affirmations. So the whole overall environment was for me, even though it was a lower paying job. So I teach that to my class, like, make sure you find a job that fits your personality. And in my class, I teach them to dream big. Like, whatever your dream is and what you really want to do, that put it on your vision board, because we do vision boards. So put it on your vision board. I don't want you to say you can't do it because of this. And I bring in, so in my personal development class, I bring in 2 successful formerly incarcerated people in a month, either virtually or physically. Reason why I do that in that class is to continue to pump in their face and show them the successful formerly incarcerated people that you can go out there and be successful. So by the time you finish that class, you done seen 12 to 15 successful formerly incarcerated people, and they done gave you information on how they did it. And I think that's important, because it ties in with your reticular activate system. And so with them seeing it all the time, it becomes relevant. And now they got the, it don't be belief no more, right? It becomes faith. Belief is they think they can go out and possibly, do something the right way, to I know I can go out there. So from thinking to knowing. And that's the biggest thing that I take pride in, as far as my class, different others, bringing a constant flow of formerly incarcerated people who've been there, in there, and telling them and giving them the game of what it takes. And then on the flip side, as far as my success stories, oh man, I have some amazing success stories. One that stands out to me is Mr. Rufino. Mr. Rufino did 6 years in prison. Um, and he was in the medical field, and he lost everything in the medical field, and thing he had on his vision board was he wanted to start his own painting company. By the time the class was over with, he had a logo ready for it. And now he got out July the 17th of 2023. And up to this date, I know for a fact that he's done about 40 painting jobs just in that time span, doing amazing work. He's going on the tour with me this year. That's one thing that I love too, that I offer is, if you're in my class or if we was on the tour, we came to your institution and you get out and you get under our mentorship and you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, we're going to put you on the tour and to give you the opportunity to travel around to many different states in prisons to share your story and your journey and be the light as well. So Mr. Rufino is one of the ones that have been through the program that's going to be able to go on the tour. And then probably my biggest, the most I'm proud of is Mr. Walker, Mr. Carlton. Mr. Carlton did 31 years in prison. Just got out a year ago. So it's a whole new different world to him. 31 years, he didn't know how to operate the phone, save a number. He got anxiety trying to order food because for 31 years he'd been living off a menu. He knew what was served on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He knew that. So when it went time for him to go stand in line at a restaurant and look at the menu and order, he freaked out because he felt like he was holding up the line and holding up the waiter because he really didn't know what to choose because he never had to make them decisions for 31 years. So with with Carlton, we had to start from the very beginning. I connected him with the proper mental health experts and counselors that he need in therapy, and he was afraid of that. The biggest thing about with Carlton is he had to change everything about him because he was stone cold criminal. In my terms, he was stone cold gangster. So for him to transition from a stone cold gangster and doing 31 years in prison to a civilian, just the mindset and everything else is totally different. So not only did we have to start from the beginning as far as when it came to the phone and things of that nature, we had to start from the beginning on the mindset and the transitioning into a criminal mindset into a civilian and building confidence in him because he came out with excuses. I'm not going to want to be able to, I can't do this because I'm 54, 55, I'm a convicted felon. I can't go back to school because before I got incarcerated, I was trying to go to school and I owed some money and loan. I can't do this. A lot of that stuff that he can't. And then I had to stop him and say, Mr. I just want to know what you want to do. If it was laid out in front of you right now, what would you love to do? And he said he wanted to be an electrician and also in robotics. Highly intelligent. He knew everything, like he was telling me how the flying cars was designed and things like that. And so once we got past the phone and start setting these little goals for him to do, he started to get more confidence. Now, it's some things that happened that without me as a mentor would have drove Mr. Walker back to what he knew at the time. Because I was there to walk with him, so he put him in one halfway house because he came out with nothing. So he went to the halfway house. They did an audit on the halfway house. They shut that down, or the halfway house down. So now he has to we scrambling to find him some more places, beds, open up rooms or whatever. So if I wasn't there to help him with that, that could have sent him back. And then it was when he had gotten to the cooking class, then they came in there and shut it down. Like, it was a lot of things happening in this process of learning and starting over to where if I wouldn't been beside him, he would have went back to prison. And I tell everybody in my classes, you have to trust the process. It's a process. And sometimes you don't really see the results because you run across the obstacles, but if you trust the process, it'll come out better in the end. That's why I had to keep telling Mr. Carlton, like, just trust the process. I'm telling you. And so I'm happy to say this month he got enrolled. He got his FAFSA cleared. He's enrolled in college, and he's starting his electrician school at the end of this month. Not only that, he found a STEM program there in the area that he can get involved with and start doing things in that way. And he's a whole nother different person when he's speaking. His mentality, like he's, you know, I was joking with him last week because I mentor him every week, and we on calls. And I was like, Mr. Master, Mr. Walker, boy, you talking like a civilian. And he started laughing. He was like, yeah, I know, don't it? It sounds good, don't it? But just to me, that's big because he did 31 years. And you think some of y'all might not be 30. I don't think a lot of y'all 31 years old. So see, think about how the world has changed since you've been born. And then if whatever many years you're away from 31, add them years to it. That's how long you've been gone. Like he went to prison and it was CD players and tape decks. And now he's out here and he's trying to figure out how to phone call, you know. He ain't even worried about music. He just needs to learn how to operate his phone, how to save numbers, how to get on the meetings, because all his meetings with caseworkers and stuff are all virtual. So Mr. Walker right now is my biggest thing because of what all the years that he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how different it must be. Many of us are probably in our 20s, 21. And we've seen so much change in the world in culture and in technology. Obviously
Right.
so different.
And then you have to look at you all was able to advance with the changes. Like even with me over the years, I was able to advance. When someone's taken for 31 years and inside prison is already behind. So they, you know what I'm saying, tablets is just now becoming a thing in prison. Well, tablets been out here for a long time, you know. And so when you're in an environment that's not moving at the same pace as the world's moving, that kind of 31 years might seem like 50 to 60 years.
Absolutely. I believe it. Um, And you touched on this next question on your YouTube channel, actually, but I want to reiterate it here today for our attendees. Are there any specific challenges that incarcerated individuals face when it comes to personal development that are, specific to that demographic?
Confidence is one of them. Really, that's the biggest because when you don't have nothing that you're going to, like a lot of people don't know, a lot of people in prison getting out of prison is really don't have nothing family. They burnt bridges with the family. They hurt a lot of people. There's a lot of things. And so they don't have the support. And then trying to come out, you might need housing, you might need transportation, you might need a support system, and you don't have these things. Your confidence of self, your self confidence is low. Your hope is low. Like you feel hopeless because you don't have these things. And inside of prison, reentry has now become a big thing. You know, here in the last couple of years. But prior to the last few years, you wasn't getting all the aid and assistance and help that is coming into the prison now. So when you don't have these things in the institutions and then you don't have a support system, you need, transportation because reentry is all the way around the board. It's not no one shoe fit all. Then you start that you don't have confidence enough that you're going to be able to go out and make it. Like, how am I going to make it? And I got to get a job. I ain't got no ride to the job. I got to get out and get an ID, but I ain't got no ride to get to the ID. What type of PO I'm going to have? I need housing. Even if I go to the halfway house, then what? Some of the halfway house is worse than the prison. I know some people that have to carry their guns in the halfway house because the halfway house is dead center of a violent neighborhood. I've been in feds where it's been people that came back to prison because they got caught with a gun in the halfway house. And so when you got all these odds you faced with, and it seems like there's no help or nothing, it's hopeless. Then the education. When we talk about personal development, with the learning style. A lot of times, people don't take the time. They don't have the time to really sit back and see how a person learns. That's going to help them out better, you know. And so, in the personal development, it's not enough assessments when it comes for them to really understand themselves, their attitude. Like that's another thing. And not only that, not know um what would be not no courses or no one there to work with them directly about how to make an attitude shift or the things how attitude plays. It looks good to us on the outside, or for those on the outside, because you see that, oh, they got this program or they're taking these programs in. But a lot of prisons with these programs, it might be a small percentages of prisons with offering them programs to that amount. Majority of prisons might just have the GED program and NA and AA in there. Then that's it. That's all they got. You get lucky if if you get anything outside of that, but they most definitely gonna have the GED program and education. And so, education got to be the biggest part of the personal development, because whether it's picking up a skill or a trade, like you still need that. That's education. So if you don't have that, then people just in there. If you ain't educating yourself, you just caught up in the environment of prison. And so you come in uneducated, you go out. You come out uneducated. Is 80% of those incarcerated can't read past the fourth grade level. But it's not like you don't see a lot of reading programs inside the institution, right? But let's say 30% of those in institutions, they strength and they learning strength is through reading, but they can't read past a certain level. So what are they reading when? And so when I'm dead serious, like when I say the reading level is not past fourth grade, it's really not, because I've written letters. I used to help people write letters when I was on the inside, when they send them out and read the mail. So how are they able to read job applications and things of this nature, and read with a comprehension, reading with comprehension and understanding? That's another part of that. So in my class, I understand this. That's why we go through each and every exercise. We read it. I read it out loud because some can't read. So I read it out loud, and we break it down, and then I challenge them to read it and things of that nature, because this is important. And the comprehension. Okay, what does that mean to you when you read that? When you read this, what does it mean to you? And these are their results of their assessment. So when they're looking at their assessment, they're reading it. They'll say, yeah, your attitude assessment, saying this says this and this and that. And then you put sometimes this what this means, and so education most definitely is the biggest thing that uh when it comes to the personal development, that is a problem, because like I said, the education based in prison is just schooling, GED program, and it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's interesting that you brought up, it's true that we are hearing more about reentry programs and programs, in our city and all these things happening. But at the same time, I still think there are definitely a lot of misconceptions about what reentry is really like. So, what are some of those things that people, may not understand, or might have a false notion of, when it comes to reentry?
I think one, it has to be the employment. I mean, to me, getting out and just taking any job, and everyone says that's, a lot of people look at that as, yeah, man, you're out of prison, you need to just take what you can, and that's almost a setup for failure. Um, because, like I said earlier, you're putting people in jobs that they're not going to last long. And coming out of prison, like I say, that sometimes we looking for excuse to get back to what we was doing, because this is a new life. What I'm doing now is a new life from who I used to be. I used to spend 17 to 20 hours on the drug block all day, every day, hanging out with all different type of people on my block, robbers, killers, whatever, drug dealers, whatever. To the life, that's a totally different life than what I live now. And so a lot of people can't see that. So when you throw them into this job and you saying, just take this, and they looking for an excuse because this is bored to me. I'm not used to this type of life. I can't really do this. It doesn't fit me. I quit. Now I'm going back to what I secretly was wanting to do. I just use that as an excuse to do it. And so when you help someone tap into their talent and figure out what it is that they really want to do, and then able to show them a way to do this by a certain job. Carl, you want to be a speaker? Well, you might want to go get you a job in marketing and promoting, or a sales associate, because you're able to talk to people and you're able to, get to meet people and meet and greet people, interaction. So you might need that. What if I got somebody in the people person? I wouldn't want to put them into a sales associate. They stand over the corner with an attitude. They unapproachable, and things of that nature. That it doesn't fit. That's why I say you just can't just throw people into any job and say, yeah, you just need any job because you're fresh out. And then you subconsciously telling them that you ain't good enough for no upcoming jobs because you just got out of prison. And then on top of that, you look at the housing market. People don't really understand the housing market is worse than is finding a house, and being a convicted felon is almost kind of like worse than getting a job. They think about the people that in society that don't have a felon on their background trying to find a house. And you're going through the credit, the money and stuff like that. So imagine the restriction of housing is you can't have certain crime. Credit, that's another thing. I opened up an account with Chase. I had several $1,000s in the business bank account. I had a line of credit that matched half of what I had in there. Paid it up, everything do good. They sent me a letter and told me I was a reputational risk because of my criminal background, and I had to close my accounts. A lot of companies do that. So now you have people that are starting debit card companies, or these companies just for formerly incarcerated or felons to be able to build up their credit and stuff like that, because Chase and other companies, because of your criminal history. But that's part of reentry, because we're talking about changing their whole lifestyle around and living like a civilian. And everything you got to do, from getting car to a house and everything else, is based on your credit. But how can you build your credit when the companies don't even want to deal with you because you have a background? Transportation always going to be an issue. There's no way around that unless you're going to get a contract with Uber or Lyft, or most nonprofit organizations, they have bus passes. Halfway houses and stuff have bus passes. But the biggest thing about reentry that people get is that it's a one shoe fits all. What people have to understand, each individual has their own case. I might not need help with transportation. I might not need help with a healthy household. I might not need help with a job, but I might need help in the mental health aspect. I might have some trauma that I need to get over that led me to prison. Financially and stuff like that, I might be well off. Then vice versa. Somebody else, financially, might not have it on, but they headstrong. So now they got to figure out, where their housing, how they're going to get to and from their appointments, how they're going to pay their fees and restitution. So they might have to look at it on that aspect. So that'd be the biggest one about reentry. The misconception is that it's a one shoe fits all. No, it's an individual based thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to note, since we have about 18 minutes left at this point, we are going to be opening it up for questions in a couple minutes. So you can be thinking about any questions you might have. Feel free to drop them in the chat, or later we can have you raise your hands and you can ask questions. But you were talking about how, these issues are, of course, systemic in nature. There's, even the credit card companies. I think that's a prime example of how, misconceptions about formerly incarcerated people are, affecting this community on every single aspect of life. And so a lot of students here today and in our group are interested in trying to make changes and, you know, make lasting improvements that will help this community. So what advice would you give for people who want to go into, criminal justice or law or nonprofit work and make some real change?
Man. Uh it's got you got to make sure that's your purpose. That's what you really want to do. Because the work is hard. People will ask for a lot and don't want to pay a lot. And so you had to be dedicated to, like, that has to be your passion and your purpose, not just your passion, but it has to be the purpose behind your passion. Um, Whether it's you want to see law change because laws are unfair, for mandatory minimums, or whether you want to work on the inside and and being in corrections. You just got to make sure that you got a passion for it, because it you will go through some things. Yeah, you will go through some things, and you have to figure out how to balance it. So, what I can tell you is just make sure it's what you want to do. Make sure it's your passion, especially in the criminal justice field, because not everybody's for uh, the help. Not everybody's for rehabilitation or correction and reentry. Majority of the people that work in corrections are not for it. When I walk through the gates, and when other programs walk through the gates, you see it on their faces and things of that nature. Not every prosecutor, not every judge is about light sentencing, or doesn't look at the sentencing and attack it in a logical manner. They want to lock people up for a long time, and they've been doing it for years. So you gotta to be in the fight. You got to make sure that that's your purpose and that's what you really want to do, because you're going to see some things, and man, you'll see some things in this industry that, whoo, you make you shed some tears.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And before we open to our Q&A, I just want to give you an opportunity to, if you have anything exciting coming up in the future that we should look out for. And if you want to share your social medias with us so that we can stay up to date with what you're up to.
Yeah, all my social medias is named after me. I am Kardell Sims. That's my Facebook, Instagram, uh TikTok. I don't really be too much on Snapchat. And then it's Kardell Sims on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my area of expertise when it comes to social media. Just because in the field I'm in, that's the best business. I mean, I get traction and stuff on Instagram or Facebook, but as far as business wise, LinkedIn is good. Outside of that, this year, we're looking to double back on the tour because last year was so much of a success. I'm really looking forward to it because I'm able to introduce some of the guys that was in the programs and give them the opportunity to get out there. And we got some more new people coming in. My thing with the tour, I just wanted to bring in and show the institutions the impact of peer educators. So I'm looking forward to doing that again this year. And then I got a couple of new programs just going in a few different states this year that I'm implementing. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just a general thank you from us in our organization for the work you do. It's so admirable and just really an inspiration. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you all for the interest in what's going on in reentry, because that's huge, and you all are the leading voice in the future of what reentry is going to look like and the criminal justice system is going to look like. And it's a lot of changes that has to be made, and I think you all generations are going to be the one that is not afraid to step out there and say, "Hey, this got to change." That's just what it is.
Yeah, we're certainly a very passionate bunch. And with that, if anyone has any questions, now would be a good time. You can raise your hand or you can drop it in the chat. All right, I see Maya's hand up. Maya, what is your question?
I just want to start by saying thank you for sharing your story. It's very powerful. Um, but with my first question, or my only question, sorry, I only limit it to one. You said earlier that reentry is also about like starting from the inside. But what advice would you have for somebody that has already re-entered but didn't have those resources or the support to start the process while they were still inside?
I would recommend two things. One, if they on probation or parole, to get that information of resources from their parole officer. Don't let them tell them that they ain't got it. That's what they there. If somebody in there ain't got it. Two, find them tell them find me. Reach out to me. Yeah, but find them a mentor, because the mentor will know what them resources is and things of that nature. Them would be the two things that I always say. Get the resources from your PO, and then try to find you a mentor, because they know where all the resources is and the help that you can get.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, it looks like there's a question in the chat. Michael asks, do you think correctional officers slash prison staff hurt prisoner reentry overall, or can they also be helpful in guiding people down the right paths?
Uh, whew. I done been in some prisons where they hurt. But overall, I met a lot of correctional staff and wardens and reentry coordinators and case managers inside prison that they genuinely do try to help. And then the way prison environment is changing now. It's kind of like going out with the old and in with the new. And the old ways were did criminals, and dehumane. And the new way is education, what's supposed to be corrections and rehabilitation. And so now you're starting to get a lot of wardens and things coming in. There's more program focus for their institutions. And then you see a lot of private institutions partner up with formerly incarcerated people. And you see a lot of correction educators who lost their job during COVID have started their own business, and they're becoming with their own program, and they're getting back in the prisons as well with their program. So now in this area of time now, the correctional staffs are more helpful, and they're more assistant, and they really genuine about seeing those becoming better while they're in their care. Um, a lot of prisons are starting to go into model some of their housing after Norway. Norway probably has one of the best prison models there is. Well, I know in Maine uses one of their prison use it, and I'm actually a mentor. And me and this guy has a training program that we train in other prisons, and he's incarcerated himself based off Maine being one of those prisons that are more open, and their staff are more open into rehabilitating and corrections. And they have a whole housing unit. It's not a guard in the housing unit. The guy that I mentor, he has a whole podcast studio in his cell and things like that. And so they're more to it, and you're seeing that more and more to this day. That correctional staff and the wardens and just the overall prison and those working there are more and more into the rehabilitation and correction, instead of how it was when I first went to prison. There wasn't no such thing as rehabilitation and correct unless you did it on your own. Wasn't no programs or anything. You either made license plate, you made woods, you made shirts, or you worked in them out on the highway and stuff like that. It was more jobs in there, but it wasn't no programs at all.
Yeah, great question. Um, let's see, we have another question in the chat. What resources and programs do you think schools should be implementing to help guide students and prevent them from engaging in criminal activity?
I, I don't think it's necessarily school programs. I think it's necessarily how it's designed. First of all, you need to take resource officers out of the school. Um, School, the prison pipeline is for real. So the way that schools handle the disciplinary action now, you send them to the resource office, and then they send them down. If they continue up, you send them down to the juvenile program. Juvenile might have a program. You just grooming them for prison. That's what you're doing. I think you have to do more social and emotional learning. Schools should offer a lot of trauma. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying like uh, you have to find a way to implement trauma learning in the schools at an early age, right? Because a lot of children that go to prison are coming from messed up households, and they're going through these childhood experiences. Mothers on drugs, fathers on drugs, single parent, mother might not be in the house because she's working all the time. You know, just many different things. Or they might be abused physically, mentally, sexually, whatever, coming up and going through school and them acting out in school, getting a resource officer and putting them in handcuffs and taking them down to that ain't the answer for it. We need to get to the root of it. We know the root of prison. You know, 80% can't read past the fourth grade level. 90+% is dealing with ACE, with some type of trauma. So we have to figure out what the trauma is. It's not the substance abuse and the criminal activity that's actually leading them to prison. It's an underlying thing, and it's the same way with the children. So me personally, I think schools need to start implement, like I said, social and emotional learning, and then also in a fun but engaging and educational way, start dealing with trauma.
Yeah, great question. I know several schools in Massachusetts are now taking more of a restorative justice approach. And interestingly, Boston University has partnered with several different facilities in the Boston area to offer, college programs like
Mhm.
4-year education programs, which I think is also really great.
When I first started going to prisons, even in the early '90s, it wasn't programmed like I'm gonna say from probably 1997 all the way up to probably 2017, 18 is when the programs got taken out of prison. Prior to that, people was coming out of prisons with degrees and in prison and everything. When I first started going to prison, you was able to take schooling, getting degrees and everything like that. And then one day they just came through and said no more college courses in prisons, and it's been that way from like 1997 up to now. And it took some years for them to dwindle out. So like when I started coming to prison, it was kind of on the end of, yeah, we used to offer programs, but they took the college courses out. So like now when we see all the prison to the college to prison program, prison PhD programs, a lot of people like, man, finally they letting people get the degrees back in jail, because it used to be that way, and they just stopped. I don't know why, but they did. So I'm very happy that them things that's the offer now. Like you're able to because like I said, in most prisons outside the GED program, there was no other further education alone. So now when you bring in these programs and Now they're able to further their education, have something to wake up every day and look forward to. Man, I got to go to class. I'm trying to get this degree. You know, that's a big thing, having something to wake up that you're working hard for, then waking up, have to walk and look around and sit around in the dorm and get involved in everything that's going on in there. So I'm glad
Yeah.
I honor that, and the work that colleges is partnered up with the institutions and doing on that behalf.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great to see, and of course, still more work needs to be done. But I'm glad that,
I think
Boston
schools
has
should.
given.
I don't know. This might be a little too, but I think schools should um have programs for children of incarcerated parents, right? You know, because that number is huge as well. You know, out of the million plus people, I mean, that's locked up across the country, I think it might be like 47, 50 some percent, maybe even more. And it's crazy. I don't know this because I got a guy who Colorado that he has a nonprofit that's geared toward that. We just got through going over statistics, but it's statistically it's real high of children of incarcerated people who are incarcerated. Their parents were incarcerated. I think like 47% of the incarcerated, their parents were incarcerated, and like 70-some% of those incarcerated have children. You know, and so I think that somehow, some way, that has to play into the school system as well.
Absolutely agreed. I think that the percentage is even higher for women. A lot of women that are incarcerated are
And
mothers.
and women have it worse in reentry, because and in prison, um, when you go to a prison and you visit, like you might none of y'all might not visit nobody in prison, but when you go in prison to visit a room in a male prison, all you're going to see is women, mothers, girlfriends, wife, daughters. You know, these are the people that's taking care of the things while the man's incarcerated. When the women get incarcerated, nobody's in the visiting rooms. There ain't gonna be too many men there. Maybe some mothers, maybe some sisters, but you're not gonna see a lot of men in the visiting room. So they don't have the support. Women don't have that support that men normally have, which normally men incarcerated support is coming from women. So most of the time, the women who's incarcerated, their partner is incarcerated as well. And then now they have children. So now they have to displace the children. If they were pregnant, now they have they can have the baby. I think in Missouri it used to be you can keep the baby with you for 5 months. Now I think they make it for 18 months. And then you go leave them with family, take over, get the rights and stuff like that. Then when you get out of prison, you got to fight so hard to get the right back to get your children back. And things like that. So yeah, women they go through a lot when it comes to reentry and just the whole system and all. And right now, they are the highest. They're the one to get incarcerated at a higher rate than anybody right now. Women.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on and on. I feel like there's so much, so much to talk about here, but I do want to be cognizant of the time. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for everyone who came. We appreciate you coming out. And this recording will be available in case any of you came in a bit late or had to leave early. But yeah, truly, thank you, Mr. Sims. This has been a great discussion.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.